Well, we're kind of busy here.
Okay, we're in the City Hall meeting room on March 6th. Happy birthday, Mom.
Your mom's birthday?
Yeah.
Well, happy birthday.
Let's call the meeting to order. We'll start with introductions. We'll go with
Kara
Carrie.
Terry, Ward 1.
I gotta get to my page.
Chris Schubert, HR Director.
Connie Hillman, City Finance Director.
Kevin Stooney, Alderman at Large.
And Gabe Johnson, Chair of the committee. We have a number of items tonight. That's why we're meeting so early.
And we'll be done at 7:15 anyway.
I bet we will. 8 items. Number 1 is to ratify the hiring of police officer of Nathaniel Peters.
So we have offered Nate Peters our police officer position, and he has successfully completed his pre-employment hiring process. He will start on March 13th on step 4 of the police officer wage grid, which is $36.04 per hour. So we're asking for a motion to ratify his hiring, as I've mentioned.
I so move.
And I will second.
We have a motion and a second to ratify the hiring on step 4. How many sworn officers does this give us?
That was my question.
26.
26, okay.
Wow. How long will it take
That's the
him?
most we've had in my time on the council, I think, so that's cool. Any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next up is update regarding the police chief hiring process.
On February 21st, the City Council accepted Police Chief Bestel's retirement and authorized staff to conduct an internal-only hiring process. The position was posted and 2 employees have applied. Staff would appreciate if a work group could be formed comprised of 1 or 2 City Council members with volunteers selected by our Council President. That's what we've done in the past. And with City Administrator Bergman and myself to oversee the interview and the promotion recommendation process.
In the past, we took volunteers. This is a change from past practice.
Well, we're asking for volunteers still from the council president. The next one is where we're actually asking from the Personnel and Finance Committee. So this is still volunteers. So like I mentioned here in the options and alternatives, when we've used this work group in the past, it seems to work really well. And I think it's nice that the council members are involved when we have a department head level position. The recommended action is to approve the formation of a work group comprised of 1 or 2 city council members with, to oversee the interview and promotion recommendation process.
Okay,
Oh, I'm supposed to make the motion.
yeah.
So moved.
I will second it.
Any discussion?
There is.
There we go.
How long was it posted?
It was posted for 3 full days as required by our employee policy manual.
Okay, is it public information who applied or not yet?
Yes, it is public information because both of them will be selected for an interview. So the 2 people that applied are Deputy Chief John Davis and Sergeant Paul Dooley.
So upstairs, Kelly will ask for volunteers. Is it appropriate for me to be on that or probably not?
You're a city councilman.
Well, I know, but with the history and all the
That's
stuff.
up to you, Kevin.
Okay,
I'm happy to volunteer too if we need volunteers, so.
okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next up is an update regarding the classification and, approved submittal of request for reconsideration of the city's 2023 pay equity report.
On February 17th, the city received a first notice of non-compliance regarding our pay equity report that was due January 31st, 2023 for wages as of December 31st of 2022. Staff recommends to authorize Flaherty and Hood, our classification and compensation consultant, to submit a request for reconsideration. So when we brought this to the council back in January, we knew that we were going to be in non-compliance. We expected this notice from the state, and Flaherty and Hood has asked for an extended deadline for us to be able to submit a report to get us into compliance. At this point, we do not know what that date is yet. They have asked for January of 2024.
Okay, we'll take the motion, I guess, Kevin.
I'll make a motion to do whatever, all that stuff she said.
I'll second all that.
So I have a question. If we expected that we were probably going to be out of compliance, and they came back to us and told us we are indeed out of compliance, why are we wasting the time to request reconsideration
It's
when
part
we...
of the formal process. So we had to, by law, submit a report. And we knew we were going to be out of compliance, but we did what the law required. We just waited for the process to work. That process is that the state needed to notify us that we were officially out of compliance. And there's only two options that you could do. You can either immediately adjust wages, or you can request this reconsideration.
So requesting the reconsideration is a step in the extension process?
Correct.
Okay.
And that is the first, in January 24 at the end of 24.
January of 2024.
Okay.
For wages effective December 31st, 2023? Is that what we're hoping to do? Or,
The state is up to, the state has to decide. We're hoping that when we say we have now.
Well, we
had a
can't be in
report-
compliance on December 31st, 2022.
No, I believe the wages.
2023.
The budget would adjust that.
We do not know the date. It is up to the state. They will tell us what we can do. So I can't tell you a date at this
The
time.
chances of getting an extension are,
Should be very good. So Flaherty and Hood, when they have done these types of compensation and classification studies before, have worked with the state and they have agreed to it. They have talked to the state directly. I have not, so.
okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Now it's on the update regarding the classification and compensation study.
So we have had Flaherty and Hood helping us for a few months now regarding our classification and compensation study. The next phase that we need to do is actually get a workbook out to our different comparable cities as far as to actually do that market analysis. And when Flaherty and Hood looked at their information, they did a couple different things. And the first thing that they have recommended is that the cities they select for the market include Alexandria, Bemidji, Baxter, Cloquet, Detroit Lakes is new, Fergus Falls, Grand Rapids, Hibbing, Hutchinson, Marshall, New Ulm, North Branch, Sartell, and Sauk Rapids. The last three are all new. Compared to the last time, they did not select North Mankato, Fairmont, and Red Wing. We've also asked them to look at Crow Wing County information as well. So that's the first part, is we wanted to let the council know these were the cities that were selected and to make sure you're okay with that before we proceed.
I am not. There is nothing comparable about the city of Sartell and the city of Brainerd. Not the age of our housing stock, not our tax capacity, not our population, not our economic development region, not a single thing is comparable. Not our median household income. We are two entirely different cities. And I'd say pretty much the same for Sauk Rapids as well.
So Flaherty and Hood had given us some information.
And I read it, and they
Yeah.
said we're in the same economic development region, but we're not. So Flaherty and Hood is not correct there. And we're not the same population, because Sartell is 19,000 people, we're 14,000 people. That's 5,000 apart, that's 33%, that's pretty far apart. But if you want to compare us to a city that's 5,000 population difference, and actually in our region, why not pick Little Falls? Which is also a county seat. There's also a post-industrial rural Minnesota town, it's not a suburb. So Sartell and Sauk Rapids, I can't accept it.
Right. And I did let them know that there was concerns, and so it is up to the council to decide what cities you want us to utilize.
Why don't we use the same cities that we use when we do comparable studies like for fire, police, and wages and all that?
We use the police supervisors and the police officers. We've used the same cities since like the 80s. With that said, some of those cities are now over a population of 20,000. So for the rest of our employees, we don't really look into them so close because of interest arbitration for police. We've tried to keep the same cities for those purposes, but it's a little bit different between the regular employees versus the police.
And also, with the adding of Detroit Lakes and North Branch, these are cities that have comparable utilities.
Correct.
So electricity and water and whatnot.
Correct.
Which Sauk Rapids and Sartell don't have, because they're not comparable to us. But so that handles step one. You go on to point two.
So the other things were position classification evaluations. We did what we call JACs, job analysis questionnaires. And all employees filled them out. The department heads looked at them. I should not say that all employees did. The majority of our employees did. If there was more than 3 people in a classification, we asked for only 3 of them to complete them. So with that said, at this point, after the department head looked at them, then Jennifer and I needed to look at them before we submitted to Flaherty and Hood. Jennifer and I have looked at 16, we only have 74 more to go. Yeah, it's a big project. We've talked about the pay equity request for reconsideration, and we also plan on doing the JAC interviews as well. So if employees wanted to talk to the consultant directly about what they put on their JACs, they could do that. Right now that is set for March 24th, and I believe we're also going to try to get March 23rd as well. So there's a couple of days when the consultant will be here to talk to employees if they have any concerns. So that is our update. I did not have an actual recommendation for a motion or anything like that, but if you would like to use different entities for the market, I think that would be a good idea to put it on record.
I tend to agree with Gabe, I guess.
I can
I
agree
think
with
there's,
I mean, just on Sartell and Sauk Rapids, right, everything else seems to be fair.
But,
You're
or
okay
maybe
with-
incorporating Little Falls.
And maybe incorporating Little Falls, yeah.
You're okay with North Branch though?
It's also getting close to the metro, but I believe it has an electric utility, right? So
I believe if I remember right.
Yeah.
Yes.
so then do we want to go through each city and say yes or no or not? I don't think we need to do that.
No, I think if we can get a motion out here saying we would like to get rid of Sartell and Sauk Rapids and perhaps add Little Falls if we can, that otherwise everything else looks fair for now.
Yep, agreed. So what, do I need to make a motion? So I'll make a motion with those edits to approve the classification and compensation study with the updated cities
And eliminate
and eliminate Sartell and Sauk Rapids from the list.
and add Little
And
Falls.
potentially add Little Falls.
Okay, I'll second that.
Right, any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Chris. You got the next one yet too? Request council rep for a work group.
So, we know that our finance director at the Public Utilities Department, Todd Wickland, plans to retire. And when they talked about succession planning at one of the Public Utility Commission's meeting, they asked Flaherty and Hood to review the top two positions and to make a recommendation if we should continue having a superintendent and a finance director at the same level with two people on top, or if they should do something different. Flaherty and Hood has made their recommendation. With that said, the commission had felt that it would be a good idea to have a work group to go through this, and so that we're fully aware of what's happening and that the council and the commission is working together to, if there's going to be an organizational change, that we're working together to get that done. So we are asking for an individual to be appointed from the P&F committee because this is a department head position, actually could be affecting two of them. We thought that having a committee member be part of that group would be very, very helpful. And that group would help begin preparations for BPU Finance Director Wickland's upcoming retirement. With that said, Dolly and Mark, Dolly Madden and Mark O'Day are the two representatives from the BPU Commission that will be serving on this. They are their personnel committee. They have asked for the first meeting to be this Friday, March 10th at 2 o'clock. So just to give you a time frame of when that could be.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So is there a thought process that possibly they would combine both positions into one? Where the superintendent would also be the finance director?
No,
Okay,
I don't think so. I think you're talking about two different skill sets there.
okay. Well,
And we
I
have-
would totally disagree with that.
Okay, so what they're thinking is there would be a person that would be in charge of the department, like a director, and then a finance person would be
Correct.
underneath, the same as other division managers.
Yeah.
But again, this is just a recommendation. It is still up to the council and the commission to talk about.
Well, I think
what
it's
they
always
want to
important to have us as a counselor, P&F or whoever, be involved in those processes. I just strongly feel that way.
So, motion, requested motion is,
Oh, motion to appoint an individual to be determined as the city council's representative to serve on the work group to begin preparation for BPU finance work on directors upcoming by.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Do you guys want to appoint a representative from this committee, or do you want
I
to?
thought past practice, we always had the council president do
Yeah.
it.
We've had the council president do that.
Yeah.
But you could make
Or
a
at least ask it.
recommendation.
He usually asks it, I think.
Yeah.
But I think, since it's finance director, I think it should be somebody from here.
It should be one of us.
Yeah.
I'm available if no one else is, too.
So, yeah, I'm not
Well, do we
jumping out of my
want
chair to.
to, do we want to go upstairs with a recommendation?
Sure, you want to?
I
Wanna do
don't particularly want to be a no.
That's totally fine. I can serve.
You do?
No,
You don't?
I don't.
Okay,
We
So
can
you
meet
don't, I don't.
Friday at 2.
easy, and she
Yep.
does, perfect.
Yep, I'm just wrapping up a meeting at 2, so I'll just cut out of there a little bit early, and where do I need to be?
We'll be in this room.
Thank you, Kara. Okay, next up, Crow County Historical Society.
All right, the city received a letter from the Crow Wing County Historical Society requesting a donation. The letter was included in the packet. The amount of the donation is not specified in the letter from the Historical Society. However, included in the packet was the history of prior year donations. Donations by a city are generally prohibited unless the donation is specifically authorized in statute or charter. And information was provided that a donation to a historical society could be considered a public purpose and allowable expenditure for the city. Like I said, the donation wasn't specified, but it could be paid, or it wasn't budgeted per se, but it could be paid out of the special projects budgeted line item. In 2023, the budget was $28,000, or it could just come out of the general unallocated department, I guess. So the recommendation would be to authorize $500 to the Crow Wing County Historical Society to be paid out of the special projects budgeted line item, like we'd have in the past.
I'll make a motion to authorize a $500 donation to the Historical Society to be paid out of the special projects budgeted line item.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion carries. Civic clerk software, what's that all about?
Yes, so staff has been working very hard to minimize errors in the council packet and to make them more accessible to all. We made several changes in the past month, including what we have now, where staff creates the agenda request in a Word document and then reverts each request back to a PDF to go into the packet. The system that we use to combine all of the packet is a module which is included in our Civic Plus website. Civic Clerk is owned by the same company, but it's the next level up and allows for a more streamlined process overall. The entire packet, including the agenda request, would be completed within the software, and it includes a built-in approval process and workflows. There's also a minute-taking feature in the software, which would change the way our minutes are drafted now. There's a possibility to use it for city code codification, however, we're not ready to make that leap yet. The price for Civic Clerk is about $9,400 for year one, an annual $5,000 cost for year two. BPU, the airport, and the HRA may be interested in the product, but they just need additional information. This software is not in the budget for 2023. However, staff's recommendation would be to fund the software with the $28,000 budgeted in the special projects line item. Another option would be to use ARPA dollars. And we could prepay a couple years. I hesitate using ARPA dollars just because it's such a small amount. We want to make it be bigger expenditures. With that, we have about $93,000 left of ARPA dollars anyway. So my recommendation would be make it be part of our normal budget process and take it out of the council, the special projects line.
I'm not gonna lie, this would be the most boring council special project expenditure in history.
It's just special projects, not necessarily council special projects. It's just things that come up during the year, like grant matches and that kind of stuff.
So is this gonna make employees a lot more customer friendly as far as working with us?
It's all in what we have seen. It is definitely, it's definitely more user-friendly than having this in a Word document and then creating it to a PDF and then, oh shoot, I have a misspelling and have to recreate it and redo the bookmarks, and so it's definitely would be a time saver that way.
Okay.
It converts the packet into an HTML.
File.
I guess.
So Connie told me, yeah, it converts the packet into an HTML file, So the readability and how much it'll help Jeff, because he's had some problems with some of the agenda requests. this
Well,
year.
anytime we can do something to make employees' job a little
Yeah,
easier.
it makes the employees' jobs
Back on
easier,
time,
and it makes it more
cost-effective.
accessible to all
And there's
citizens.
definitely a process through it that can improve, like, it's not gonna go in the packet until these sign-offs occur, and they're much more, a much easier process.
So is the 5,000, you had said this is the next step up, right? So is the 5,000 the first step plus the second step, it's all one, or is the 5,000 an additional cost to the first step?
So what we're using right now is free,
Oh, okay.
and so this would be like going that next step further is what I mean. It gives us more manageability, more workability, and it's actually 9,400 for the first year. That's because the implementation and setup and training, and then it's 5,000 after that.
5,000 is more or less what we can expect to be just an annual
Yeah.
contract.
Correct.
going forward.
I really think though that we will get BPU for sure. The airport's looking at it, and the HRA, if we use like the number of average of normal scheduled meetings, and the HRA uses it for all three of their entities, they're gonna be picking up a bigger chunk of it. When I did the cost analysis, we would pay about 50% of that cost if everyone went into it, but I don't know that for sure at this point.
Makes sense to me.
Mhm.
So,
Your turn, Kevin.
yeah, I'll make a motion to authorize appropriate signatures and purchase a civic clerk software to be paid out of the 2023 special projects budget line item.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion carries. And finally, an informational presentation about our fire contract formula.
So attached to is the calculation, the memo that's provided at the March 2nd Fire Advisory Board meeting, and it follows the same formula as we've used in previous years. The overall 2024 assessment cost to be allocated increased by $11,448. And the city's overall funding share went from 42.7 to 42.41%, but it did result in an increase of $1,025 over the 2023 assessment calculation. Received very good feedback from the Fire Advisory Board's meeting when we met with them. The memo went out ahead of time, and so they could see exactly what the costs were, to how the total cost, what it increases. We talked about the factors that we used to allocate that cost, showed them how we came up with our percentage, that's Brainerd's percentage, and then how we came up with the cost. And then we talked about why it can change, if they change the cost, and then it can also change the factors. So this is just a quick summary. Oops.
God, that looks familiar.
Doesn't it though? Kind of gives a different overall. I mean, you can see the unorganized territory picked up the biggest bulk of it, and the reason because of their population and the taxable market value. They picked up the biggest chunk of that.
Yeah, they're almost the second biggest city in the county. The
They-
second biggest unorganized.
They are the third largest city
Yeah.
in the county. That's what Mr. Hool was saying there. So, yeah,
When's the fire board meet, this week or last week?
we met last Thursday.
And they've seen this?
Yes.
Okay.
And the memo and we went over more in detail the calculation. We had about 6 or 7 different pages that we went through with the Fire Advisory Board, but the memo and this calculation all went out to all the township clerks so that they have it for their setting of their levies next week.
What kind of feeling do you get? Everything fine?
They really appreciate going through the detail and just the clarity. We provided them the history, and the last 10 years we've gone up maybe 1% on average.
No.
And so we talked about how that might not be enough with inflation and that kind of stuff. We talked a lot about the capital and the funding and the amount we put into the capital. So they would just appreciated the feedback and the openness, and
Well, and call volume was up too.
call volume was up. This is the biggest year,
Yeah.
busiest year since 2021. We thought that was the biggest,
Yeah.
busiest year.
Call volume was crazy.
I think almost another 100 calls. Does that seem about right? Or
No,
50?
a little more,
100?
probably.
I can't remember.
Went to a dryer fire today.
Aren't you
It's kind of
retired?
gay though.
Yeah, he still gets the,
Down by his house, he's sitting in the neighborhood fire.
yeah, that's when it
I still
comes
go to
to
call once in a while.
Okay.
If I still got the app on my phone, so if my phone beeps at something good, I'll go,
Oh, that's
it's 2 in the morning.
good.
It's a house fire.
All right, so So that was just informational how it went out, so.
Hang on, I texted my wife, she was curious about the fire trucks.
About the what?
About the fire trucks in the neighborhood at lunchtime.
Trying to
today.
fire mine.
Yeah, small stuff. Okay, anything else to come before the committee? With that, we got about 5 minutes to get upstairs. We're adjourned.
Second.